Hey, this is Idea Coach. He's the coach. He's wrong. Weighing on the weight class, episode 24, UFC FOX 5, where we have the lightweight championship bout between the challenger Nate Diaz versus the champion Ben Henderson. Let's get into the picks. Light heavyweight bout: Mauricio Shogun Rua versus Alexander Gustafsson. Alexander Gustafsson is perhaps the best built-up fighter since John Jones, coming out, for the most part, a UFC original. This is how a league dealing with fighters should groom their fighters to become stars. Since his loss back to the surreal Abu Dhabi event 2.5 years ago, the Mauler has been undefeated, finishing 4 of his last 5 opponents. He has a good overall skill set and seems to be a lot stronger than what his physique tells. This is not really about seeing where Alex is going to go. It's really to see if he can be the fresh meat for the current lightweight champion. Unlike his last 5 fights, Shogun, when he is on, is the real deal. Matt Hamill had great credentials, as well as the Snake and Vladimir Malashchenko in his heyday. Even a pre-Lyoto Machida Thiago Silva was a major force to be reckoned with at one time. But all of them now have trouble putting all the pieces of their training together inside the octagon. Rua doesn't really have that problem. Injuries have been his main issue. But Shogun is a fighter known for knocking out people that does it. He's known for submitting people, and he does it. He's known to having great inside clinch work, and he implements that tactic. The Shogun post-Forrest Griffin is the most overrated and underrated fighter of all time. He's either going to kill someone or he's going to get creamed. After seeing both of their last fights, I actually desire to see both of them have rematches with former opponents rather than face each other at this point. That being Shogun versus Lou Nogueira 2 and Phil Davis versus Alexander Gustafsson 2. The Mauler has not faced someone with a virtual complete package as Rua, nor has he had a chance to display a comprehensive skill set to beat someone like Rua. This is going to be reminiscent of Eric Silva versus John Fitch. It's just not the Mauler's time yet. Welterweight bout: Rory McDonald versus BJ Penn. And the main welterweight bout of the night, we're either going to have a coming out party or a celebration of the old guard. Rory McDonald will be taking on BJ Penn. This fight, even more so than Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen 2 back in July of this year, is about the hot topic of MMA today: performance enhancers. Penn's request that his opponent take anti-doping tests. Rory agreed, and he's come back clean. I bring that up because the end of the year is coming up, and this whole TRT shit is going to be addressed in a later video. After dominating performances over Nate Diaz, Rory actually fought easier fights in name recognition, on paper, and stylistically speaking. I know that Nate is an undersized welterweight, but after that he really should have faced some stiffer competition. Mike Pyle is good, but over the hill in terms of where him and Rory fought during that time. It's very similar to how this fight is going to be with BJ Penn. Can we, as MMA fans, face the fact that BJ is just not that good at welterweight? Yes, he beat Matt Hughes when Matt was the man of the division there, but nothing to follow it up. The John Fitch fight was just horrible for both fighters, and Nick Diaz's fight was just an ass whooping after the first round. Now, enough about talking about all the X factors, themes, and histories, and let's turn our attention to the actual skill sets. BJ's boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus Rory's wrestling. Penn's biggest asset on his feet is the jab, and that's only worked with lightweight fighters for the most part. I don't think that BJ's Jiu-Jitsu is going to play that big of a role in this fight because fighters are now not as concerning themselves with obsessively taking him down. That was the fatal mistake that Kenny Florian and Diego Sanchez made. There'll be a lot of damage done against the fence. BJ doesn't really pull guard, and though his stand-up is good, he's a smaller man going against a rising star with wrestling and just sheer power that I think will keep Rory McDonald safe as long as he doesn't get greedy. Unfortunately, that may mean that he's not going to finish. Fortunately, that doesn't mean he won't be having a dominant fight against the prodigy. Overrated, motivated, BJ Penn always wins after the 6-minute mark. I got Rory McDonald all the way. UFC Lightweight Championship bout. The challenger, Nate Diaz, versus the champion, Ben Henderson. The spring saw Nick Diaz fill his opportunity to become the UFC champion. December 8th, the younger brother Nate will finally try to bring UFC GOAT to both the family name and the Cesar Gracie camp. Let's talk about the challenger. Nate is the Ultimate Fighter Season 5 winner, and it's been a while since one of those were anywhere close to contesting for a UFC belt. Yes, he won it off a freak injury, but many thought he was on a good roll afterwards for a few fights. Things got tough once he had to face name brand opponents. He's actually 5-3 in his last 8, and although he has never been finished in the UFC, Nate always had difficulty with fighters who are not either A, one-dimensional like Takanori Gomi or Jim Miller, or B, guys with glaring weaknesses like Gilliard. All of his losses in the UFC have come from physically and mentally strong fighters such as the Stun Gun or Rory McDonald. I know those guys are welterweights, but he's facing the toughest and biggest lightweight out, Ben Henderson. The champ has all but erased that ninja kick that was landed on him out of most fans' minds by now. Had this fight taken place a year earlier, I may have picked Nate, because Nate is a cardio beast that can get to the heads of his opponents. But after watching the bouts with Edgar, I cannot simply see how Bender would fall into the strengths of Nate Diaz. He's mentally tough and doesn't get easily discouraged when things get rough, something that the Cowboy Cerrone surprisingly couldn't cut the mustard on. He can keep up the pace as we've seen in the Clay Guida fights. And he's physically stronger and has a more diverse striking game, something that both Diaz brothers have trouble with. Expect the complexion of this fight to have the same complexion as the Maynard and Roy McDonald fights that Nate had and lost. Ben Henderson remains a UFC lightweight champion at the end of the night. Okay, so let me run down my picks again real quick. I have Shogun, Roy McDonald, and Ben Henderson retaining the UFC lightweight championship. As far as the lightweight contendership is concerned at this point, I know that 2011 was pretty much the year of the rematches. And a lot of people got sick of rematching, especially with the whole Frankie Edgar situation, you know, fighting BJ Penn twice in 2011 and then having to go through the same crap again with Gray Maynard. Here's the deal. This time around, when it comes to the light heavyweight division, I think they should have rematches with Alexander Gustafsson facing Phil Davis again to erase that loss if he can. Or, once again, pumping back up Phil Davis. After his loss to Rashad Evans, there hasn't been a whole lot of talk about this guy, even though his wrestling is still outstanding. For Shogun, I mean, a Rampage fight would have been very nice. Rematch with Rampage, or rematch with Nogueira. Pretty much, that fight happened so long ago that they can pretty much make it seem like it's a brand new fight, because there's that whole new generation of MMA fans that have no idea that that fight took place. If they may have looked on Wikipedia or Sherdog for the win-loss record, they may have seen the name. But it's actually one of the best fights, period, in my opinion. I mean, that was during the time where Pride was just having outstanding show after outstanding show with very, very good and marquee matchups. So that'd be actually a very good time to have a rematch with Shogun, or have Shogun go against Glover instead of having Rampage do it, because you have to remember that John Jones is fighting Chael Sonnen in April, meaning he's not going to fight anyone again until probably at least August, July at the earliest. So even if Alexander was to get past Shogun, people say, oh, he's the #1 contender, he's the #1 contender. But then again, you're not going to see this kid fight again into the summertime. So I don't think it would be that good of matchmaking in terms of having him face Shogun in the first place. I think a rematch with rematch with Phil Davis, or probably a fight with Glover to see who's the real new up-and-comer, that would have been best. I still have my feelings about the Diaz brothers. Those guys are very mentally tough. I love watching them fight. However, Ben Henderson is probably the absolute worst matchup that Nate Diaz can have in the lightweight division. I see this playing out just like the Stun Gun fight and just like the Roy McDonald fight, except the fact that Ben Henderson actually has more of a comprehensive striking skill set, and he's a cardio machine just like Nate Diaz is. So those are my picks, and I catch you guys at weight class episode 24B. Take care.